of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Glauser,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Stanfield,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent,
Here.
Mayor Long.
Here. Thank you, Sienna. So I'm going to do something a little different. Sienna, did we get any oral comments from the public today?
No, we did not receive any by noon.
Okay, so if you will put up our Zoom information in case anyone wants to join us, we'll leave that on the screen while we go over the consent calendar, and that will give people a little more time if you want to try to log in.
Don't we have to do the presentations first?
Oh, we just skipped those. So we just still don't have Leanne, right?
She just came on.
Okay, Leanne, you are our first presentation. If you would like to start when you are ready.
You're muted, Leanne. You're on mute.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, you can hear me? Great. Okay, thank you. First of all, I want to thank you so much for having me tonight and giving me the opportunity to talk about the Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program. I have been with the Ombudsman Program, which is a program through Area 1 Agency on Aging in Eureka, for almost 2 years. And I absolutely love having the opportunity to work with our senior community. My title is Ombudsman Volunteer Coordinator, and I'm also Media Outreach. So my position is to coordinate the volunteer activities, do community media outreach, as well as recruit new volunteers into the program. My goal tonight is to educate and inform you as to what the Ombudsman Program is, and hopefully you will share that information around the community as to who we are, who we serve, and how you can help, with the hope that eventually everyone in Humboldt and Del Norte County will know what an ombudsman is. So what is an ombudsman? We are a federal and state mandated program. We are certified advocates for residents living in nursing homes and residential care facilities for the elderly. Our role is to work on behalf of the resident and only with their consent to make sure that they receive the care they deserve and are entitled to. Additionally, we are mandated to investigate suspected reports of elder abuse, whether the abuse is physical, financial, or other forms of elder abuse such as isolation or neglect. We serve residents in all the facilities from Crescent City to Garberville. Unfortunately, residents will not speak up. Most residents will not speak up due to either not knowing they have rights or what their rights are, or for fear of repercussion or retaliation. So we can assist them in having a voice, or if need be, we can be their voice. We always try to encourage them to speak up for themselves, but if they don't want to, then we can step in. We ensure their privacy if they don't wish to give us consent or wish their name given out when addressing a concern. So, for example, if a resident has a concern or feels they're being treated unfairly by a staff person or another resident, if they can have concerns about their food or if their room is not being kept clean, etc., but wish to remain anonymous, we can ask other residents if they have similar issues. And if we find the others that are expressing the same concern, then we can communicate these concerns to the facility administrator without naming the residents. So whether the resident is there for a short time or will live out their life in the facility, this is their home, and they need to know what their rights are and to know these rights will be protected. Establishing a relationship with the residents and sometimes family members and getting them to trust us so we can help and assist them is critical. When complaints and concerns do arise, we attempt to work as a team to find a resolution that will help for all involved. We also attend care plan meetings, which are also called care conferences, and work well with the residents' family and staff, keeping the lines of communication open, again, with the residents' consent. Additionally, we work with local law enforcement and adult protective services when necessary. With COVID in the beginning, our ability to visit the facilities was not possible, but we called the facility management every other week or more often to check on how things are going and to see how staffing is going, checking on the current census, and to see if they need anything, letting them know we are here, just basically keeping in touch. We are also available by video, FaceTime, Zoom meetings with residents if they request. However, most residents don't have smartphones or they don't know how to use them, so we are depending on staff to report honestly. Fortunately, we are now able to go back into the facilities since our job is essential, and we can now attend meetings and resume our visits with residents again, which has been, I'm very happy to be back in the facilities and seeing my residents. As always, we are following the proper infection control guidelines, and we get COVID tested on a weekly basis. We also receive PPE, personal protection equipment from the state, community care licensing, and the Office of Emergency Services, and have been able to provide the facilities with much needed supplies such as gowns, masks, sanitizers, face shields, and other protective gear. Shortly after COVID hit, we did a Card for Humanity program where we asked the community to make or send us cards, photos, homemade drawings, or letters of support for the residents. And the response was overwhelming. We literally received close to 4,000 cards, and they were delivered to all the residents in the community and all of our facilities to help the residents, to encourage them to keep their spirits up and let them know that they have not been forgotten. We still encourage the community to send cards as a way to keep the residents connected. We are currently putting together a holiday project called Be a Santa for a Senior. And our goal is with donations from the community to make sure that all residents in all the local skilled nursing facilities will get a Christmas gift this year. As well, we are recruiting for volunteers. Because our job is essential, it's important to get into the facilities and be able to interact with our seniors. So being able to have more volunteers is critical. If anyone is interested or knows someone that might be interested in a volunteer opportunity, I can provide more information. The training requirement is 36 hours of manual training, which can be done at home on the computer and with follow-up meetings by phone or Zoom meetings. Following that training, we will have a new volunteer advocate shadow a senior advocate or staff. We ask that volunteers are able to commit to 12 hours a month, and we can easily work around anybody's schedule. We work with new volunteers till they feel confident to visit independently following the certification, and we are always here for support throughout their advocacy activities. So that's pretty much what we do. So.
Thank you,
Just-
Leanne. Have any questions? How many rest homes, or what do you call them? Not rest homes. What do we call them?
Facilities.
So how many do you service? Did you say that?
We service all the facilities from Crescent City all the way to Garberville. So approximately between 350 and 400 residents.
That's a lot of people.
Yes. So we get out there a lot. So that's why it's important that we're really striving to get more volunteers.
Anyone else have any questions? Jeremy.
Where did you say you could make donations for Christmas?
Yes, you can do checks and send it to 434 7th Street in Eureka at the Area 1 Agency on Aging. I'm sorry if I said that too fast.
Any other questions for Leanne? I can't see everybody. Okay, I'm not seeing any. Thank you for being here and sharing with us. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it.
All right, moving on to our next presentation. Aaron, you're up.
All right. Well, good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. So tonight I'm going to provide a presentation on our sales tax for fiscal year 2019 and 2020. This was something that was promised back at our budget workshops back in May. And due to uncertainty created by the coronavirus, it was agreed that quarterly sales tax presentations would be beneficial throughout this fiscal year to ensure the city is staying within its financial means and not having to dip into reserves above what was authorized as part of the 2021 budget. So the presentation tonight will primarily focus on second quarter or April, May, and June 2020 receipts. Before we dive into sales tax receipts, however, I'm going to briefly go over where our general fund revenues come from. Then we'll review second quarter sales tax receipts, including an industry allocation overview. We'll also take a look at our sales tax trend for the previous few years and wrap up by quickly reviewing all of our fiscal year 2019-20 general fund revenues and talking about staff's next steps. So where do our general fund revenues come from? Property tax and motor vehicle in lieu, which increases proportionately to our property tax. We kind of lump those together, make up a large chunk of the pie at about a quarter of it. However, this revenue source is generally stable even during economic turbulence. Another quarter is made up of our transient occupancy tax, franchise fees, parks and rec fees, police department fees, and other miscellaneous fees. And I'll recap those later in the presentation. We will primarily focus on sales tax for this presentation because, as you can see in the pie chart, almost 50% of the city's general fund revenue comes from sales tax. I'm also including the Measure E fund here, which is an unrestricted revenue source that we track in a separate fund and have an oversight committee to oversee throughout the year, to track the expenses associated with that additional revenue source. But ultimately, for our financial statement purposes, they are combined as general fund revenues at the end of each fiscal year. Sales tax is also one of the more volatile revenue sources in the general fund and can be heavily dependent on how the overall economy is performing. So it's important to monitor this revenue source more closely. So I'll be focusing on our Bradley Burns or 1% sales tax, but please note that our transaction and use tax or Measure E follows very similar patterns as we'll go through with our Bradley Burns. So again, second quarter receipts represent sales that occurred from April through June. And excluding reporting aberrations, actual sales were up 0.9%. This is second quarter 2020 versus second quarter 2019. And as you can see from the chart to the right, Fortuna was the outlier in our second quarter performance, as the state of California as a whole was down over 16%. The county of Humboldt was down over 4%. And actually, Rio Dell and Fortuna were the only two cities in the county to see an increase in sales tax receipts, and part of a very small subset of cities statewide to see sales tax increase quarter over quarter. So that was very positive news. For comparison's sake, if Fortuna had seen a 16% decrease in sales tax revenue as opposed to the 0.9% increase, it would have amounted to an over $150,000 in lost revenue. One of the reasons Humboldt and Fortuna outperformed the state was because of our geography and location. Less restrictive stay-at-home orders and business shutdown orders helped Fortuna significantly. Essential merchants that stayed open all quarter had significant gains and boosted results from industry groups such as business and industry and food and drugs. Some of the other trends that we saw was a shift in consumer preferences towards online shopping, and I'll go more into depth on that in the next slide. So here are all our different industry groups in a pie chart. The state and county pool for the first time is now the largest of our industry groups, and we'll take a look at second quarter 2020 versus second quarter of 2019. industry group changes on the next slide. So you can see how how big the shift toward online buying was. The even distribution between all of our major industry groups is another reason the city outperformed the county and state. This even distribution is not common among other cities, with most cities having one or more industry group far outweigh the others. So this even distribution helps the city withstand a multitude of different economic events, including the coronavirus, because we are not dependent on just one business or industry group. So this chart shows the shift in consumer spending primarily due to the coronavirus. The biggest shift was towards online shopping, which are funneled through the state and county pools. This industry jumped from the 4th highest to the #1 revenue producing industry in Fortuna. And many experts expect this shift to become the new normal, even as the effects of COVID wear off. The building and construction, business and industry, food and drug industries all saw large increases to their revenue bases, as each of these industries include a large percentage of essential businesses. Also, please note that only 20 to 30% of grocery store sales are taxable, and they still saw a healthy increase. The autos and transportation decreased slightly. This industry includes car sales, auto parts stores, and accessories. The decline here is not so much due to a drop in demand, but more a drop in supply, as many auto plants had to shut down for small periods of time. Our fuel and service stations saw the largest decrease of all our industry groups, and this can be attributable to a number of different things. First, people were driving less, which meant that they were purchasing less fuel. And second, because people were driving less, the demand for fuel dropped, which also lowered the price of fuel. Both of these led to about half of the decline. The other half of the decline can be attributed to the sale of L&M Renner to Valley Pacific Petroleum. The California Department of Tax and Fee Administration rules that the Bradley Burns sales tax credit applies to the sales office and not the location in which the actual fuel is dispensed. And unfortunately, since Valley Pacific's headquarters are located in Stockton, the city will no longer receive the sales generated from these cardlock stations, this is a pretty big loss. L&M Renner was historically in our top 15 sales tax producers each quarter. The restaurants and hotels group saw a steep decline as well, which can be attributed to many businesses in the hospitality market being forced to close or forced to lower capacity. And this decline in this group closely matches the decline in the group statewide. So overall, our point of sale transactions were down 6%, but the county pool was up to offset the decrease. The reason I point this out is because although the city's sales tax was up almost 1%, this shows that the local businesses in our area actually saw a 6% decline. And this is something we need to be aware of in order to better support our local businesses. So now that we've looked at the first quarter, or the first full quarter of sales tax receipts that included shelter-in-place orders and partial business shutdowns, how does this translate to the city's trend over the past few years? You can see that displayed here. Unfortunately, although we saw a 0.9% increase in this most recent quarter, we still see a downward trend in our sales tax of negative 3.1% over the past few years. This can be problematic since sales tax receipts represent almost 50% of our general revenue sources, and we can continue to see costs for construction, employees, and supplies increase. So while it is encouraging to see our sales tax for quarter two come in at a level expected prior to COVID, we are still seeing a stagnant sales tax base, which could cause long-term negative effects on the city's ability to provide services. So that was our sales tax. And so now I'm going to go ahead and go through some of our other revenue sources and recap where our overall picture was for the city at the end of fiscal year 2019-20. So at almost a quarter of our general fund revenue, it was nice to see a decent increase from our property tax and property tax in lieu, or VLF. The increase to these revenue sources can be attributed to the county reassessing property valuations for properties previously reduced due to California Prop 8 homeowner protections. These increases would have been pre-pandemic, and although I expect the city to continue to see decent increases in property tax, as the housing market is one area that the pandemic has seemed to have not negatively affected, at least as of right now. Our transient occupancy tax was hit the hardest of all our groups, a decrease of $125,000, and this is a direct result of the shelter-in-place orders and travel restrictions that were put in place in April. As part of our franchise fees, we recognized about $20,000 year-over-year increases from both PG&E and Recology, primarily due to them increasing their fees. Our Parks and Recreation fees came in under budget. This was due to COVID restrictions. We recognized declines in our summer fun program, our park use fees, and our pavilion use fees. Our police department fees recognized approximately a $45,000 increase in what's called the Citizen Option for Public Safety, or COPS, revenue. This is a revenue source established by AB 118, and it's paid out of the city's share of VLF. But they also saw a decrease in fingerprinting fees due to the office being closed during April and May. But overall, they were still up about $40,000. Other revenue is ahead of budget. This is primarily due to interest revenue being higher at the beginning of the fiscal year. However, since then, the Fed has lowered the target rate, which has resulted in a decrease in the LAIF rate. And LAIF is one of the three primary investment options the city participates in. And it was lowered from about 2.5% at the beginning of last fiscal year to about 0.5% now. And it continues to drop pretty steadily. So this will result in significantly less investment revenue in the current and coming fiscal years. Non-recurring revenue primarily consists of the sale of 280 12th Street. As the council is aware, this revenue was used to purchase the pod site at 2600 Newburgh and to fund development costs associated with that site. And so if we take out that non-recurring revenue out of the bottom line, since it was used to invest in a new PD site, the city's general revenue was over budget by approximately $250,000. While this is great news, we should be cautious to celebrate prematurely. Fiscal year 2019-20 consisted of only one quarter that was hampered by COVID, whereas so far in fiscal year 2021, we are already 2 quarters into the fiscal year, and both quarters have been hampered by COVID. Additionally, the negative effects of COVID during April through June were partially offset by the federal government stimulus packages. The positive effects of these stimulus packages have largely played out to date, and future sales tax quarters could see the full effects of COVID without stimulus help on the economy and with our sales tax receipts. Quarter 3 sales tax results are expected to be presented to staff at the beginning of January, and this will be for sales that occurred during July, August, and September, and this will give us a better indicator on how COVID has affected fiscal year 2021. So to conclude my presentation, I'd like to just briefly talk about the city's next steps. So first, staff is going to continue to monitor our sales tax receipts quarterly and provide recommendations to the council if and when necessary. After this first report that I just gave, staff is not recommending any changes to the budget at this time. Second, since we saw point of sale transactions decline about 6% this quarter, staff is planning on devoting additional staff time and attention to economic development And this is not just about getting new businesses into town, but supporting our current businesses. And lastly, staff will be bringing forward the fiscal year 2020-21 mid-year budget report at a regular council meeting in February. And so this will be an opportunity for us to take a look at how we're performing 6 months into the fiscal year. And as well as I'll go ahead and give an update on our sales tax for Q3. And that would be for the receipts for July, August, and September. And this concludes my presentation, and I'll be happy to open it up to any questions the council may have.
Thank you, Aaron. Does anyone have any questions? Seeing none, I can see you guys now. Took a second. All right, then we will move on to our oral comments from the public. And Sienna, if you would put up our Zoom info while we talk about the consent calendar, that would be helpful. So we have 10 items on our consent calendar consisting of city council minutes and our normal monthly reports from the administrative department, community development, finance, parks and rec, police department, public works, river lodge, and our report of disbursements. Number 10 is adopt California Intergovernmental Risk Authority bylaws and joint power authority for Redwood Empire Municipal Insurance Fund, REMIF, and amended bylaws and amended JPA. Does anyone wish to pull anything?
Number 5 and number 6, please.
Anyone else? All right, Jeremy, what did you have?
Oh, Parks and Rec, the report mentioned that the skating rink would be reopened as of November. But due to today's announcement of tier red, the skating rink will remain closed.
Okay, and then the police department?
So I had a quick question about 2 canine dogs. I know that we budgeted for 1 and we haven't had a canine for a couple of years, but
Jeremy, that's an agenda item later on.
okay.
We're going to talk about that under number C.
Okay.
That's okay. Okay. Yeah, I think we have lots of questions on that one.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, do we have a
From the consent calendar? I mean, motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll second that.
all right, we have a motion and a second. Sienna?
Councilmember Glauser,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Stanfield,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent,
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes. Okay, moving on to like a lot of pages down here. Public hearing to consider an amendment of Title 17 zoning regulations of the Fortuna Municipal Code, adding section 17.06.220, small wireless communications facilities, and amending section 17.07.004, administrative ordinance 2020-744, and this is the second reading. Do we have a staff report?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Long. Liz Shorey will be providing that staff report, and we also have our city attorney, Ryan Plotz, on the line, and he did help with some of the aspects of putting together that ordinance.
Yeah, thank you, Merritt and Mayor and council members. Yeah, we previously gave you a detailed presentation of this ordinance that was at the first reading on November 2nd. And at that time you asked questions, et cetera. So at that meeting, we established
still have not changed my mind. I don't like when somebody comes in to install something that's going to do physical or cellular harm to the citizens that is based on making a profit off of us, and they get to waltz away and go to wherever they live and not have a direct effect. Thank you.
Liz, do you have any comments on that? I think that when they turn in their request for the
if, to take one of these down if they are abandoned.
Thank you, Merritt. Any other questions? Deanna, did we get anyone from the public call in?
I did.
Echo.
I apologize. I'm having some technical problems here. We lost our Access Humboldt feed for a minute, but I think that we are up and running again. And in that time frame, I did see one person come in, but they don't seem to be present any longer.
Okay, if we lost you somewhere along the line, please call back. We'll close public comment for the time being. And does someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to hold the second reading and adopt ordinance 2020-744 and read by title only.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Sienna?
Ordinance 2020-744, an ordinance of the City of Fortuna, amending Title 17 zoning regulations of the Fortuna Municipal Code, adding Section 17.06.220, small wireless communications facilities, and amending Section 17.07.004, administration. Councilmember Glosser?
No.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Stanfield?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent?
Yes.
Mayor Long?
Yes. All right, thank you, everybody. Our next item is approval of the amended part-time classification and pay rate schedule for fiscal year 2020 to 21, resolution 2020-39. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mayor Long. I'll be providing the staff report, and I just want to add that both our City Clerk, Human Resources Director, and Finance Director contributed to the staff report. So staff's recommendation is for the council to approve an amended part-time classification and pay rate schedule for fiscal year 2021 and adopt resolution 2020-39. This part-time classification and pay rate schedule is before the council due to upcoming changes in the state required minimum wage. On January 1st, minimum wage will increase to $14 an hour. Some part-time positions have steps within their pay scale that will not meet the new minimum wage requirement. Our finance director generated two options for the council to consider that address the steps that will fall below the new minimum wage. The first option would be to incorporate a 50-cent an hour cost of living adjustment for all the part-time positions and eliminate the lowest step that wouldn't meet the new requirement. Doing this, option one would maintain space between classified positions, but it would reduce the number of steps available to those positions, which would be inconsistent with the city step policy. Option two would be to incorporate a 50-cent an hour cost of living adjustment for all part-time positions and $1 an hour increase for all positions that would not otherwise meet the new minimum wage requirement. Option two would result in increased compression for classifications and would require the P10 classification to merge with the P12 classification to maintain a 6-step system. Option two would also create a situation where employees with higher levels of responsibilities would be at the same pay classification as an employee with a lower pay level of responsibility. The council could also consider raising all hourly rates for part-time employees. However, this would result in some part-time employees earning a higher hourly rate than some full-time employees, which could also be problematic. In the upcoming year, it is likely that council will have to address the compression of these pay classifications as minimum wage rates will continue to increase again in January 2022 and possibly in the future if prevailing wage laws in California continue to change. A copy of the options for the part-time pay rate schedule and the current part-time pay classification schedule are included with the staff report. And so the resolution references an attachment A. So if the council chooses one of the attached options, then that would be referred to as attachment A in the resolution. So that concludes my staff report. And I just wanted to make one point. If you look at option one, I gave an example of, if you look at P10 and P12, and if you look at the recreation program coordinator position, which is number 221, and if you look at the recreation leader, that's where you could start having a problem under option two, is you'd see these two positions be combined into one pay scale, and then you'd have somebody who has a higher level of responsibility being paid as somebody at the lower responsibility. Option one would avoid that, but option two, you would not avoid that. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. And we also have Aaron Belmley and Sian Emmons available too.
I got a couple questions.
Sure.
This is what we talked about during the budget process and knew that this was coming because of the change in the minimum wage law that we knew was coming in January. We did not know exactly how it was going to impact the, we knew there was wage compression coming, but do we have any financial analysis of this as to how it affects the budgeting for this year?
Yeah, I'll let Aaron speak to that. And I believe that he budgeted either option. And Aaron, would you please clarify for Councilmember Johnson what our budget is relative, the cost of these relative to budget?
Yeah, so first of all, like Merritt said, both options are budgeted. When we were originally budgeting, we had talked about delaying the part-timers COLA from July until January, since that's when the minimum wage law is going into effect. And at that time, we were just going to bump everybody up who was not meeting the minimum wage requirements and bump them up $1 so that they were. However, after giving a little bit more thought and looking into it and seeing that, positions in the same department, one with a higher, level of responsibility making the same as the other, we thought we'd go take a look at potentially some different avenues. And so that's why we came up with just kind of blacking out and not hiring people at step 0 for classification P10, since it would be under minimum wage. The cost difference between option 1 and option 2 is pretty minimal. It'll probably be $2,000 or $3,000 for an entire year. So $1,000 to $1,500 for the rest of this fiscal year, not too impactful.
Okay, because my initial reaction is to go with option 1 to have a time to reason out a solution for the wage compression and the full-time staff, part-time staff issue. And that will get us to the end of the year, or this won't even take effect until January. So it'll get us through the fiscal year while we have a chance to flesh out a reasoned, thought out proposal.
It would get us to our target date of January, and then when we started having our budget workshops around March or April, we would be able to address it and see what we wanted to do from there.
Yeah. But this takes effect in January, so it would, whatever we do runs through June 30th. But in the meantime, when we go into budget, we have a time to work through this.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, what's your preference?
My preference is option 1.
I'll second the motion.
All right, you want to make a motion, Mike?
I make a motion to approve option 1, approve resolution 2020-939, and read by title only.
Let me back up for just a minute. We didn't open public comment, so let's do that and give a few seconds for someone to join us if they so desire. This public comment thing is hard. All right, seeing no one calling in, we will close public comment, and we need a second.
Second the motion.
Thank you, Dean. We have a motion and a
Welcome.
second.
Resolution 2020-39, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Fortuna adopting the amended part-time classification and pay rate schedule for fiscal year 2020-21. Councilmember Glauser,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Stanfield,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent,
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes. All right, thank you. So Jeremy, our next item is authorization to roll over 60,000 in Measure E funds from fiscal year 2019 to 2020 to fiscal year 2020 to 21 for the police department, canine program, and radio equipment procurement. So sorry about cutting you off earlier, but we couldn't really do a lot with the consent part of it, and this is the budget part of it, which I think is what you were trying to get at. That might change if we have 2 canines, so that's why I wanted to talk about it here.
Well, I didn't know if approving the consent was approving the 2 dogs. So I thought they were kind of separate because one was talking about money and the other one was talking about the program. So
Right, which the program costs money, so that's why I was thinking to talk about it here. So
okay,
anyway, hope you understand, and I hope I didn't mess you up too much. Sorry.
nope, we're good.
All right, so staff report, please.
Yeah, so before I hand it over to Casey, I just want to say that we did have a number of questions regarding the staff report. And really the action here is to do a supplemental budget request and roll over the funds that were intended in the last fiscal year for the K9 and for the radio upgrade. But we did provide quite a bit of detail on the K9 program. And so Casey will address that in his staff report, and we will be happy to answer any questions about the K9 program or the radio upgrade as a part of this. So with that, I'll hand it over to Casey.
Thank you, Merritt. All right, well, first off, good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. Staff is basically recommending the council approve a supplemental budget request in the amount of $60,000. These funds were previously budgeted Measure E funds in fiscal year 1920, of which $25,000 was earmarked for the Department K9 program and $35,000 was earmarked for the radio interface upgrade project. Essentially, this request can best be understood as a simple rollover request for fiscal year 2021. The police department has taken the steps necessary to reestablish the K9 program and will utilize the previously earmarked Measure E funds in the amount of $25,000 for training, equipment, and maintenance. Regarding the $35,000 previously earmarked for the radio upgrade project, the department is attempting to keep these funds available for this equipment. However, the new police facilities remodel has delayed the project. If we complete the project now, it will increase overall costs associated with the project in order to move the equipment from the main station to the new police facility. Therefore, rolling over these funds will allow the department to plan for project completion and schedule it appropriately according to the timeline associated with the new police facilities progression. Regarding the fiscal impact, again, this is a rollover of fiscal year 1920 Measure E funds. Allocations of these funds for fiscal year 2021 will allow for the reestablishment of the department's K9 program and the radio upgrade projects to proceed and fulfill the recommendations of the Measure E committee. And so I know there was a lot of questions on the staff report, so I will take any questions the council has.
Jeremy, you want to ask your questions now?
Sure, yeah, I'm actually fine with the rollover aspect of this. That's not the problem I'm concerned about. Is just going from 0 dogs to 2 dogs. There's going to be an annual increased expense year over year budget wise. So I was curious to know how we're going to make up that shortfall later.
Yes, Councilmember Stanfield. There was like Merritt said, there was a lot of information on the kind of what I projected going forward with the program. I am very, very confident that at some point we will be able to actually turn this into more of like a 2-for-1 and grow that program without a significant impact to the budget. However, if going forward, after the first dog and, my efforts as far as fundraising or the department's efforts at fundraising and trying to gather outside revenues to support a second dog look like that they would adversely impact the budget, of course, that would be something that would be brought back to council.
So your intention is to go after the 1 dog in the beginning. We'll get that dog and have the training completed and have him in service.
Yes,
before we start working on the second dog.
Yes, Mayor Long, that's correct.
So we have time to research budget implications and make a decision later.
We have plenty of time. We just, we don't want to get into a situation where we are now, where we've essentially gone for 2 years without a canine. So that's something we will look at going forward, but this request is simply to reestablish the program here.
Does anyone else have questions? I think that explained it. I think it just caught us off guard when we saw that we were having 2 canines, which we have never discussed before. And I don't think any of us object to that. We just are concerned about how we will pay for it.
Yes, ma'am, I understand.
Mayor Long, too, I would just like to add, if I could, that I really appreciate the police department seeking additional funds and really trying to leverage the funding that we have, getting grants from other sources. And, I just think it's it could be a win for the community. It's a popular program, and, the effort that they're putting into not only get the program going again in a short period of time since our new chief has been here, but also to fundraise and try to extend it, I think is a good goal. And again, we don't want to commit the council to anything beyond what's been approved in the current budget, and we'll certainly be cautious not to do that.
I am all for the enthusiasm that our new chief has brought, and it'll be interesting to see if the community backs us with our fundraising efforts, because it would be awesome to have 2 dogs. So thank you for that. Anyone else? All right, we'll open public comment. Give it a few seconds. Somehow I don't think anyone's joining us. All right, seeing no gestures from Sienna saying someone has called in, we will close public comment and move on to a motion.
A quick question regarding the radios. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem.
Did you say you're going to delay purchase until you have moved over to the pod permanently?
To answer your question, Councilmember Stanfield, what I want to do is I want to basically spend the money when it's appropriate according to the timeline of progression down there. Because what we don't want to do is absorb additional costs for completing the project now and then having to pay to move the equipment from the main station to the new police facility.
All right. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve a supplemental budget request in the amount of $60,000 for K-9 program and radio equipment to allocate Measure E funds previously budgeted in the fiscal year 1920.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Sienna?
Councilmember Glosser,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Stanfield,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent,
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes. Thank you all. We are up to our city manager's report. Merritt?
Thank you. So first, I'd like to report on some of the upcoming council meeting dates and other relevant city meetings. On November 24th, there will be a special city council workshop at 1 o'clock, and that will be to review council member assignments with the new city council being seated, or for when the new city council is seated. On December 7th, we'll have a regular city council meeting, but we'll also have a special meeting at 1:30 to look at some planning programs, including an accessory dwelling unit ordinance and multifamily design standards. And so that'll be, the workshop will be with some of the consultants that are doing the work under our SB2 planning grant. And then our regular council meeting on December 7th will be at 6:00 p.m. Our next regular planning commission meeting will be on Tuesday, November 24th, also at 6:00 p.m. Our next Measure E meeting is on December 15th at 5:30 p.m. And then our next Roner Community Recreation and Park District meeting is on December 2nd at 2:30 p.m. So just a few items to report. I think a lot of the council and the public has already seen, but the state of California today moved a number of counties into more restrictive tiers in response to the fastest increase in cases and hospitalizations being seen since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. Humboldt County was reassigned to the red tier. The state will require various business sectors reduce capacity or modify operations while still following the COVID-19 safety measures, including wearing facial coverings, physical distancing, sanitation procedures. And these requirements are expected to take effect within the next 24 hours. I know our police chief is looking at this also, and we're trying to make sure that as this is rolled out, that we're consistent between agencies. The state's requirements under the red tier include changes to bars, breweries, and distilleries, that those would have to be closed, that wineries can only operate outdoors, family entertainment centers are open outdoor only. So that's the one that caught our roller skating rink. And then a number of other restrictions. There is concern that the county will move forward into the next tier, which is a purple tier soon, that could result in restaurants closing to indoor dining, schools closing, and a requirement for non-essential offices to work remotely, amongst other things. So we really don't want to see that happen, but that is a real potential, we're being told. And I just tell the public, if they're interested, the most recent COVID-19 information is available on Humboldt County's website or the California Center for Disease Control website. Just a quick update on COVID enforcement. Even during this uptick, we did receive communication from the county that they'll stop taking the lead for monitoring and recording COVID violations in December. And so that responsibility will fall onto the city. To respond to the shift from the county to the city, we'll be considering bringing an agenda to change the COVID-19 health and safety violations to an administrative complaint process similar to other code violations. This would allow the city to have more discretion as to how these violations are handled, and they would be handled administratively and not criminally. So we think that'll be important as the city takes a more active role in the enforcement as a result of the county stepping back. Just hopefully the last update on the Jamison Creek Fish Passage project. I'm pleased to announce that the Jamison Creek Fish Passage improvement project is essentially complete. The roadway is reopened, the guardrail was installed. We don't expect any more lane closures to be necessary for this project. And again, I'd just like to thank the public for the patience. That road was closed from June until the beginning of November. We know we inconvenienced a lot of people, and we really appreciate all of the cooperation. And then, so that's it for my staff report. I'd be happy to answer questions or provide information on other topics if the council has any questions.
Any questions for Merritt?
Merritt, could you touch on the parks and with tier red?
Yeah, so just recreation program, I need to, again, this is something that just came out this afternoon, so we're still looking to adjust. Immediately though, Councilmember Stanfield, the one that you brought up, the indoor skating, but the next one that comes to mind, are camps, and if there's recreation programs that they would have to be held outside. And so I don't have a specific answer on those programs now, whether it's a winter fun or any of the other camps, but I'll get with Cameron Mull and I'll provide an update to the council once we have an understanding of how those might be impacted. Were those the programs you're thinking about, or are there other ones?
I was thinking of the public use of outdoor facilities like the bike park. Such a nice little addition. I see kids on there constantly. I just hate to take that away from them again.
Yeah, so we're gonna be meeting at a staff level tomorrow to look at these regulations and see what they change. And we're going to go over all of our protocols and kind of take the time to just take a look at what we're doing as a city, how it affects our facilities, how it affects our program. So that's going to be a significant effort for us tomorrow to kind of review those. And I'll provide an update to the council via email once we conclude that and we have some answers.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Merritt? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to future agenda items. Anybody? Hearing none, we'll move on to city council reports. Dean?
You're muted, Dean.
Thank you very much there, fellow councilwoman. The last election is going to be for Redwood Coast Energy Authority. There's going to be possible up to 4 board members that will not be on that. There'll be a change. But like any board, it does flow based on who the executive director is and the other members. So I have nothing to report other than the fact that it's the same every meeting. There one discussion point, and I think everybody in Fortuna got a flyer from PG&E based on the amount of money that PG&E collected as an entity. I think it was $285 million that's going to have to be returned as credits towards members of the community that chose not to be members of the community choice aggregate. So that's going to be an interesting balancing act, and how that's going to possibly negatively affect Redwood Coast Energy Authority's revenue source. They may be making a shortfall that has to be extended over the period of time until that's all dispersed. As for the last election, my base, I think from 10 years ago, I think half of them passed away because I've generally had a older community base. And then the people that came into play were younger. They don't have the same ideals that I have. Their vision is complete transition, and that's what's going to happen. But it was a good run. I'm going to steal a little bit of Tammy's thunder. Mike, you and Tammy both went door to door promoting Measure G. That wonderfully was accepted and welcomed by the public to extend that another 8 years. That is a gift that we cannot say enough thank yous. That will help us with the financial balancing. If that had not passed, the transition negatively in our city would have been so adverse that it would have been horrible to even envision. So again, the public, thank you very much. If you're watching, tell your friends. If they're not watching, tell them thank you as well. We do have a COVID restricted Thanksgiving with Governor Dictator Newsom saying these are the following dictates. I have no idea how that's going to be ignored or followed. And all we have to do is wait another week after that holiday. And if the numbers go nuts, then we know that a lot of people came and visited when they should have stayed home. So hopefully the number will not go up. I do not want to go to anything higher than red. I want to go back to yellow because there were only 2 other places in the state that were yellow. Yellow is mellow. So I'd rather go back to yellow. And for all the people that cannot stand me saying I love my God and want to express that in a closing statement, and for the people that cannot stand me loving my country, I serve my country, I believe in my country 100%. You people just have to mute me when I'm coming on. You don't have too much longer to have to worry about that. But in the meantime, God bless America. God bless our troops. May we all be safe. Wear your mask like I do wherever I go. There are times and places that is appropriate. The younger generation, I see you walking around. I know it's your choice, walking around without any masks. If you notice, the average age of the people that are being infected is lowering. It was like 42, 45. Now it's down to the average of 36. So there's a lot of people that are getting impacted because of picking and choosing the wrong time not to wear the masks. So God bless you all. And I'll let this go to the next person. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean. Mike?
Thank you, Dean. And I would like to follow up with that and thank the voters of Fortuna for their passage of Measure G. And I'd like to thank the members of the Measure G committee for their diligence and prudence and responsibility in administering the funds, which gained the trust of the voters. And they could see what was happening and what their money was being used for. And then it was for essential services, for parks and rec programs, for infrastructure repairs and maintenance. And that the city council, the Measure E committee, we were all responsibly using the money. And we thank the voters of Fortuna for another extension of that important Measure E. I also want to talk about the Historical Commission. We had just had a meeting last week and some exciting things. The 100th anniversary rodeo book is being written and going to press not too far away. And remarkably, the Susan O'Hara and Alex Service and the museum receive royalty payments from the previous books, and that can go into museum improvements and for future books projects being done. So they just received recently over $400 in royalties from the previous books. And also this coming Wednesday, the 18th, from 5:30 to 7, the Chamber is hosting a mixer virtually, obviously, and they will have a shelter-in-place scavenger hunt, which ought to be interesting, as well as some Fortuna trivia. And registration for the mixer is through the Fortuna Chamber. Get a hold of Aaron. And they received some pictures, some JC's documents, some 8x10s of the 1950s rodeo queen candidates, and a wooden rocking chair for the museum. Those were the accessions that were on the business agenda items. Also attended the Jamison Creek ribbon cutting. It was a good day that day to reopen the road. The sun was out. The people gathered, and we got pictures taken, and the road was reopened to, as Merritt said, to remove an obstruction in the way there. But at the same time, that project secured the roadway so that we don't have to worry about it failing again. It improved the fish passage, and who knows, maybe in a few years we'll see salmonids coming back up there and spawning. Don't know. It improved the flood control abilities, and so that's a great thing. So Jamison Creek is reopened. I did mention that to Greg Pratt that day because we were doing interviews for the HCOG executive director's position, and he was ecstatic, I'll tell you, as chairman of HTA. And speaking of HCOG, we had completed the executive director's interviews, 2 days worth of interviews over a week in between, and did the initial group and then narrowed down to the top 3. And out of that, a candidate was chosen, and it will be taken to the HCOG board this Thursday in a closed session, and we'll see what comes out of that. Also, we've been doing the regional transportation plan, climate targets. There's an ad hoc committee for that. We're coming up on our 4th meeting, and think of the regional transportation plan as the general plan for transportation in Humboldt County, because that's the best way I can break it down so people understand it. And it includes transit, multimodal with bike ped transit, electric vehicles, and zero emission vehicles. It all works together. And as we get this plan together, just like we're finding out about our own plans looking into the future, we have goals that have to be met, and we're setting up measurable targets for that so that we have something to compare it to. And as I said, this Thursday is the HCOG board meeting, and it will be via Zoom. So it's just an interesting thing to do meetings that way. And that's all I have to report right now, and I'll pass it on to Jeremy.
All right, Jeremy, you're up.
Thank you. I haven't met with the Parks and Rec Commission since last time I was here, and then I have an FBID meeting tomorrow at 4. They're going to give away some gift certificates to the Fortuna Theater for in lieu of free movies. Looks like they're going to be able to win movie gift certificates at our roving holiday boxes at local businesses. And then business nominations for the HumboldtBest.com. ends on this Friday, or Friday the day after Thanksgiving, not this Friday, next Friday. So if you have an outstanding business that you want to nominate for the HumboldtBest.com, please do so. We do have one vacancy on our board currently. It's for the hospitality industry. So if anybody's interested in that, please contact FBID office, or I believe it has to go through the clerk's office in order to receive an application. That's about it for the agenda for tomorrow, and then I'll have more to report after the meeting. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Jeremy. Tammy?
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I wanted to add a little bit to Dean's. Mayor Long also was out there walking the street with us, doing a lot of that publicity too. She had a big part in that. So I didn't want her to be left out. And I am proud that I was reappointed to the Public Safety Committee. So I was happy to hear that. The ribbon cutting on Ronaville Road was a big success. It's very nice. And if you have a chance, actually stop and go look over the edges. It's beautifully landscaped on both sides down towards the creek where you can see the creek. They did an excellent job on that. And I'm happy that road's over. It shortens my ride to work every single day. And then I also wanted to thank Chief and the police department for helping with the annual Harley ride from Fortuna to Eureka to honor the vets the Sunday before Veterans Day, where they start here in Fortuna. I believe there was over 100 of them, and rode into the cemetery in Eureka and then had a program honoring the vets. And that was very nice. Let me see. I think that was everything except Merritt. I would really like, if at all possible, to keep that new pump track bike park open for the kids. It really is important that they have some place to go do some recreation and to actually be able to get outside. So if at all possible, I really hope that we can keep that open. They're really, really enjoying that. And that's all I have. Back to you, Mayor.
All right, thank you guys. So expanding on our Measure G, I'm just elated that it's holding at about a 70-30 approval rate, which is amazing and so rewarding. I feel totally blessed and accomplished for having worked on that campaign twice now and having succeeded in getting it passed. And so I feel really good about the future of the city and the budgeting process because we have those funds. So it takes a village. We had an amazing Measure G campaign committee, and I hope I don't miss anyone. We had, the main walkers were myself, Tammy, and Mike, but we had other people who stepped up and helped with walking, as well as the fundraiser, Debbie August, Diana Rios, Dawn Ingram, Walt and Julie Wilson did an amazing job covering Royal Crest and parts of Campton Heights. Charles Ellebret from the police department was our treasurer, and he also walked some neighborhoods. Becky Giacomini walked some neighborhoods. Scrapper's Edge printed our flyers. Brian Papston gave us some advertising specials. Tina Taylor planned an amazing fundraiser drive-in movie that sold out before a couple of weeks before the event even happened, and we were able to pay all of our bills for Measure G, which was very, very helpful, along with our people who advertised during the drive-in movie, which was Sequoia Gas, Six Rivers Property Management, Green's Pharmacy, Paul and Debbie August, and When Construction contributed as well. So it's just, I feel totally blessed to have the voters in our city understand the importance of that measure and to have voted in favor. So moving on, I spent some time with the HSU President's Community Advisory Committee meeting, and they just talked about the goals of HSU. Karen Deemer was leading part of that, obviously, because it affects the city of Arcata and all their economic, whatever you want to call it, their economy. And so she was a big part of leading that meeting to find out how we get local students to go to Humboldt State, because a lot of the people were sharing that they had college-age kids and Humboldt was not even on their list of colleges to look at. And so how do we change that? And how do we get more local people attending, as well as a lot of other topics that we discussed? It was a pretty interesting meeting. a member of the public sent me a link to Ferndale's Christmas decoration contest. And so they wanted to know if we could get something going in Fortuna. And I said, you know what, sounds like a great idea. So I have a meeting tomorrow with Danny Kelly from Kiwanis, Becky Giacomini, Renee from Chamber. I'm not sure who else. Anyway, we're going to see if we can put some kind of a contest and mapping system together for Fortuna so that people can go around and look at Christmas lights and vote for their favorites and try to figure out a way to fund maybe some prize money. So we're going to meet tomorrow and discuss that because we need more meetings. And then I'm trying to get back on the Housing, Community, and Economic Development Committee through the League of California Cities. I just filled out the forms for a presidential appointment for that. And if I don't get that one, I'll be on the Government Transparency Committee. So I'm headed back to the League of California Cities Committee meeting. So I'm excited about that. Anything else we missed? I don't think so. All right. So we do have a closed session tonight. Conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation pursuant to paragraph 4 of subdivision D of section 54956.9. We have one case. So we need a motion to adjourn to closed session.
Motion to adjourn to closed session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Sienna?
Councilmember Glauser,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Stanfield,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent.
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes. All right. We are adjourned to closed session. We'll give a couple minutes to get off of Humboldt Access and everyone else to check out and